Morning, church. Glad to be here with us this morning. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we get to come together and worship our God and seek Him, seek His comfort, seek His truth, and seek His love together. I'll tell you what, last week was awesome. And I want to thank Marshall first for leading our group on a mission trip to New Orleans, for his leadership in that consistently over the years. I got to go and see it in action, and I appreciate that. And for you and for Mason as well last week, sharing testimony and challenging us, encouraging us to live on mission here and now. And I really liked it because I got a week off to where I just got to hang out and just be a part of the church, and it was really fun for me. I know a lot of things are in our worship guide today, and there's lots of opportunities to plug in and serve, to give away your life, to give away your faith, to give away your money. And I want to encourage you guys, this month what we're doing is we're looking at our missional God and all of the traits that make up His mission and how we, as His people, as His missionaries, we're called to carry His mission to the world. So being a missionary for you and I, it's not just about going to some far-off location, and it's not about some particular vocation, but really it's about our identity and our calling. It's about our identity. We're a part of a people who are called the church, and the church are a people who orient themselves around our God, who is always on mission. He's a missional God. And so wherever I am and wherever I'm going and whatever I'm doing, I am a missionary. And that goes for all of us who are God's people, who come together today. Last week, Marshall talked about the hope that God gives and how we can be a part of carrying that hope to the world and how we can help move people towards the hope that God gives. And what I want to do today is I want to look towards God's justice mission. And I think a lot of times we hear the word justice and we think maybe it's kind of a side issue for the church, or it's a side issue for God, but it's not a minor aspect of God and His mission. It's not an elective. It's not a modern fad. It's not a political agenda, but justice reflects the heart and the character of our God. And in the same way that you and I often can say things like God is love and God is peace and God is power and God is joy and God is hope, we say these kinds of things, we can also say that God is just. It's a part of His nature. It's a part of who He is. And you and I, we have these sayings, we have these things that we chant. We'll say things like, God is love, and I'll say, God is love, and you'll go, all the time. Remember this? Way back? And I'll say, all the time, and you'll say, okay, that really stunk. We're going to do it again. I'll say, God is love, and you'll go, there it is. And I'll say, all the time, and you'll go. And so we have these homilies, we have these chants, these phrases that we throw around that reflect our belief and our understanding that God is always love. And He's always, at all times, pouring out His love onto the world. And in the same way that we could say that, I could say God is just, and you could say, that's right, and I could say all the time. That's a fact. In the same way that God is love, all the time, God is always just. And at all times, and in all situations, God is pouring out justice into this world. And I think we've got to open our minds to understand this. Psalm 103:6 says that the Lord is always performing righteous deeds. He's always performing righteous judgments for all of those who are oppressed. Not just for Christians, not just for the church, but He is seeking to bring justice to the world. I found this passage where God's speaking to the prophet Amos in the Old Testament. When's the last time you read Amos? It's been a while. Maybe we need to study Amos in the future. But God's speaking to Amos about God's people, about His people who worship Him with their words. They love to come and sing songs. They love to come and worship and dance and throw their hands in the air. And God says, if we come to worship Him only with our words, we're doing it only for show unless those words move us towards action. Action that seeks righteousness. And to Amos, God said, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Our worship of God, our relationship with Him should have this output of us pouring out justice and righteousness in the world. To Isaiah, God said, I, the Lord, I love justice. This is no minor thing to God. It's directly connected to our worship of Him and to our discipleship as we're growing to know him more and be changed by him, and it flows directly from his character to ours. It's a critical aspect of who God is, and it's truly fundamental to his mission in the world. And so we as his people, as the church, as missionaries, we're called to love justice as he loves justice and to be a just people in the world. And what we see is we get this picture of the different aspects of God's character, of his nature, and how they're fluid, and they come together to paint the picture of who God is. His love is poured out through his action of justice. Justice, this trait of God, is the action of love. Justice is the action of love. Now, I'm going to do something today that you're going to believe is impossible, but I'm going to do it. My clock's already started. I have 12 minutes left. And you're going, yeah, right. I'm going to wrap this quick because I have some stories I want you to hear about how love moves to action and brings justice into our world. But I want us very quickly, if you've got a Bible, to turn to 1 John. We'll be in 1 John chapter 3. And I'll do my best to move quickly because there are people with better stories to tell than me today. But I've got a good one. This is in 1 John chapter 3. We're going to look at verses 16 through 18, maybe a little 19. And I want you to see something. I want you to see that our God, who is love, and our God, who is just, it's a part of his nature, his character, who he is, that he sent his son out of these natures. And he provides Jesus as our model for this missionary life that we're supposed to live. Jesus made clear God's mission when he came to earth and how we are to carry out his mission to the world. And in writing about it here, this is in 1 John, what we see is this justice and this love, these aspects of God's character, how they're central to his mission. So 1 John chapter 3, look at verse 16, just the beginning of it. It says, we know love by this. This is how we know love. We know love by this, that he, Jesus, laid down his life for us. Jesus reveals the justice nature of God. He reveals the God of perfect justice. He brings justice to the oppressed. He rights the ultimate wrongs that we all have turned from God. There's something separating us, and so Jesus comes and he does what it takes necessary to please a holy God and to bring us back to him. Jesus reveals the God of perfect justice whose love turns to action. And to do so, what Jesus did is he laid aside privileges. Jesus laid aside the joy of heaven. He laid aside the peace and the pleasure of being in the full glory of God in heaven and being present and apart from all of the sinfulness of the earth. He left the worship of the heavens and the angels to come here and live simply and humbly and not be accepted by most people. And it's an interesting fact. It's an interesting truth we see here as he lays down his life for us. It's because he did this. It's because Jesus accomplished justice, that he did everything necessary so that justice could be done, that we even have an understanding of what love is. We wouldn't understand what true love is if Jesus had not performed justice. His justice taught us the love of God. And this was born out of a self-sacrificial love and out of an obedience to God's call. If you look at verse 16, what it goes on to tell us is that the self-sacrifice of Christ is not just a revelation of love, though what it does is it shows us, it demonstrates, it allows us to understand what love is, but it's more than that. It's also an example for us to copy. Verse 16, it says, we know love by this, that Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to then lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Jesus did this to show us God's love, and so we ought to do the same. Since we are in Christ and we're his people, we're his missionaries. As we seek to worship him, to center our lives around him and serve God, we ought to be making efforts and self-sacrifices to right wrongs, to put love into action, to free the oppressed. And the word ought that John uses here, it literally means that we have a debt to pay. It's not a suggestion or an idea or an option. It's a debt that we must pay forward because Jesus came, left heaven, and sacrificed everything to bring justice for us. That should compel us. We must pay forward this debt because he did so well to love us and meet our needs. Why would we not be walking around seeking to meet others' needs? I want to ask you a question. I want to offer a question to you for you to think about for a second. I'm not going to give an answer right away. I want you to think about it because I don't think that this is an uncommon idea that I'm sharing with you. I think that we can remember like Jesus' words in John 15, greater love has no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. We've heard these kinds of things before. But here's the question. How do you know if you're really willing to do that? How do you know if you're really willing to sacrifice yourself for others? Think about it for a second. There could be more than one answer. I have an answer. How will I know if I'm actually willing to do this, to lay down my life for others? Well, I know it if I'm already doing it. If I'm already making sacrifices, if I'm already giving up privileges and rights and pleasures, that could be small things, that could be really big things that we give up daily to meet genuine needs of others and to share real love and to right wrongs and to act justly in every situation that we encounter in our life. Now, I tell you, this is a little embarrassing, but I love to dream about being a hero. I've always been this way. I have this complex. I love to read stories about heroes. I love to watch movies about heroes. Indiana Jones is one of my favorite. I think about myself every time I'm watching one of these movies or reading one of these stories, and I'm the hero, and I'm putting my life on the line, and I'm facing insurmountable odds, and I'm sacrificing everything for the good of others, and I picture myself, and I daydream that that's me doing it. And it hadn't happened yet, obviously. I'm okay right now. Just okay. It hadn't happened yet. It might. But not all of us are called to extreme acts of heroism. Just not all of us are called to do that. But I think what's happened in my life often is that while I wait for this extreme opportunity to really prove my faith in God and my love for others, I become content in the simple pleasures and the comforts of my daily life. And I look over all of the other opportunities to share daily justice and to have daily sacrifices for maybe smaller things around me and sometimes huge things going on around me. And so I become content to live my life with my pleasures, waiting for that day to come when I might lay it all on the line. John here, though, in the passage in verse 18, he says the time is now. Don't wait. Look at verse 18. Little children, I hear him speaking to me, my daydreams about being a hero. Little children, let us not love with word or tongue. Let's not just talk about it. Let's not just think about it. But indeed, in truth, let's do it now. This is how we'll know that we are of the truth and we will assure our heart before God. John is simply describing the Christian life. It's not just martyrdom that he's calling people to. He wants us to understand that love and that justice are deeply embedded into the character of God and into the mission of God, and so it should be deeply embedded into our daily lives. And every one of you and me are daily encountering people. We're surrounded with people who have hurts and needs of every kind, and some are emotional, some are spiritual, some are physical, some are financial. We are surrounded with needs. And we're called not just to look for the life, laying down my life for someone, but to meet the daily needs I see with daily heroic acts of self-sacrifice, to bring justice to the oppressed, to help carry our neighbor's burden, to share God's love in practical ways with people. We're called to value others above ourselves and to give of our finances and of our time and of our pleasures and of our patience and of our attention. And we're called to do this actively, Not just consoling people with kind words like yeah, I'm sorry things are bad, I'll pray for you, which is good. But to insert ourselves and to dive in deeply with people and seek righteousness and justice for all peoples. And you notice I jumped over verse 17. We'll read that in just a sec here. It's 16 and 18. We're going to come back to 17. But I'll tell you about a family in our church. There's a young family in our church that I won't go into a whole lot of detail because I didn't okay it with them. But I've been so impressed and blessed by this family in the time that I've been here because I have watched them give away their life and their faith and basically their everything for the sake of God's call. And there's a young man in our community who really just needed a family, a second family. He needed friends. He needed people who would love him and just accept him for who he is. And this family has two options as they interacted with him and they saw him, noticed the need. They could either say, well, it's good to see you again. I hope your week goes well. Praying for you, which is great. But instead, this family went to him and said, you're a part of our family. Come over. Share our table. Share our living room. Share our life. You're ours. And they have built this relationship with him where they pour into him emotionally and spiritually and meet needs of every kind in his life because they chose to live out love. Not just in kind words, but by actions. Verse 17, John talks about Christians who don't do this. Look at verse 17. But whoever has the world's goods and he sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? See, John's talking about Christians who don't act on this love of God, who live lives unconcerned about the hurts and the oppressions around them, who are compassionless, maybe, or uninvolved. And they're not, he describes them as not engaging a vital experience of God's love. He even describes them as standing in the way, being a barrier, being a block to the flow of divine love and divine justice going through them towards the world. They interrupt the flow of that by their inactivity, by their unwillingness to act out in love. And I was thinking about this concept and trying to understand what this looks like, and maybe this will help you. Have you seen the TV show Wipeout? Okay, let me just, I don't want to offend anybody, but basically it's like the lowest common denominator television there could be, but it's fun to watch. I'm just saying, it is, but it's fun to watch. And what happens if you don't know, there are these contestants, these people, and they're on a mission, really. They're in one place, and they've got to get to another place. And that seems pretty simple, except for the fact that there's an obstacle course of things that are popping up and knocking them off course and swinging across and throwing them into the water. And they're supposed to thread through this, and all these things are impeding their progress. Okay, get that picture in your head? We are called as God's missionaries to be on a mission through this life to carry his love and his justice to our world. The problem is when we stop being the contestant, the person on mission, and we become the obstacles. You get that? When we stop being the person who's to carry love and justice into the world, but we become the objects that are knocking that off course. And hear me, we can't stop the love and justice of God. But a lot of times our inactivity, our unwillingness to engage, it stops the flow of divine justice through us. The problem is when we become the obstacles to justice. God wants to demonstrate his justice through us. He wants to use us as his missionaries, as his instruments of justice. So don't just be aware of injustice, but pursue justice. More than that, don't just pursue justice, but live justly all the time. Live justly in all of your circles, in your home, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, as you engage people at the grocery store, where you eat, in everything you do, be an agent of justice, revealing God's love. I realize that this is one of those like pie in the sky. That sounds great, man. This is what we should all be doing, of course. But the proof is seen when we really act. And what I want to do today is share with you, while we're all called to do this all the time, I want to put in front of you an organization that we as a church have partnered with strategically to make sure we are always a part collectively of God's justice mission. And you guys are familiar with Emily's Place. who we've had a long relationship with, and I adore the ministry and what God's doing through Emily's Place. And I want you to see real quick a video talking to you about the details of their ministry and where they are in their story today. Check this out.
At Emily's Place, our mission is to break the cycle of domestic violence for women and their children through long-term transformational care that seeks to restore faith, hope, and health. We've been turning dirt and getting ready here in the next couple of weeks to start pouring concrete for our new residential facility. We are so excited because currently at capacity we can serve 12 women and children. When this building is complete, when the campus is completed at the end of the summer, early fall, we will be able to go more than double our intake to about 28 to 30 women and children.
Yeah, the new campus is really exciting for us because we've spent the better part of 6 years trying to get one area that we could serve all of our homes in one facility for some more efficiency. Efficiency as it relates to cost of capital, as well as just being able to be better stewards to our women and children as it relates to all the things that they need during the time of their stay with us.
Before I came to Emily's Place, I was really lost, felt really lonely, didn't feel like a good mother. As soon as I got to Emily's Place, they was giving me the praise of how good a mother I was. I had never felt that before. And I felt like at home. I felt it was family. And that was the best thing ever. I wake up and I see my kids sleeping very calmly and safe. They're not scared to wake up. They're not scared to ask questions. They're happy and safe, what a mother always wants.
Sean and Lena Greenfield are our current house directors, and I truly can't say enough about them. They have brought so much to this ministry, and what's so exciting to see with Sean and Lena living with these women and children is their compassion and their hearts for this ministry and truly helping these women heal. And they have a unique story. They both met or went through the Providence Network program in Denver.
For my own self, there was a time when I needed someone to help and felt like there wasn't anybody in the world that knew what I was going through, and then to be on the other side of it now, to just give back and help folks that are in a hopeless situation, and to be a motivating factor for them is what's personally satisfying for me. Not only that, but the spiritual ramifications of that too, just that I know I'm doing, I'm pleasing the Lord in His work, and He's called us here to be here, so our passion is to help those that are broken and hurting.
Well, for me, I was there not too long ago. I was that broken person that no one believed in, that was empty and alone. And people poured into my life. They loved me through the brokenness. They loved me for who I was. They were the love and support that I had never had. And we get to be that today. We get to be the people that are able to pour into these women's lives, to be able to tell them that they are special, that they are loved, that God loves them more than anything, but that they're valued, their kids are valued, and just being able to pour in the kids' life as well, that they have safety, they're able to play and not get in trouble, they're able to just have the husband and wife motto and know that it's safe and that it's a safe place for them.
And one of the things that motivates me is the kids, you know, to see the transformation take place for when they first get here and they're just afraid of their own shadow and they don't trust people. They just have that downtrodden look on their face, and you can tell they've just been through a lot of chaos. And then even as quickly as a week later, they're laughing and playing. And so seeing that transition could help someone realize how worth it is. You know, it's bigger than just, absolutely we help women get out of a domestic violence situation, but their kids, if we stop that cycle, it doesn't go on, it stops with them, and then they actually have a chance at life.
And what's so great is that they are there to be the figures and show the women how a husband is supposed to treat his wife. And the children get the father figure with Sean living there.
My son can look up and say, that's who I want to be like, Mama. He's so nice to her. And that touches me personally a lot because he has never seen his father do that for me. And I want that.
draw. I like to ride my bike. I like to play football with Sean. I like being safe.
The kids are a big part of this. It's not just the mom that gets help.
Right.
It's the kids that get help. And so from there on, then as they grow up, they learn what's right and wrong, and it's truly breaking the cycle of domestic violence in these women and kids' lives.
It's very rewarding when you see that transition take place. You know? And then we get to be there when they graduate and they're off on their own, they're self-sufficient, and they've got a relationship with God. That to us is priceless.
Yeah, it's a perfect word.
You know, it's in the Old Testament, and it's the book of Haggai, and it talks about God speaking to his people after they'd come back from being exiled in Babylon, and he says, you know, I want you to go up into the hills, and I want you to bring back some wood and build my house so that I will find pleasure in it and that I will be glorified. That's exactly what we're doing here, right? I mean, this construction is to the glory of God, and it feels like we've been in the ditch for 12 years, but we have been in the hills for 12 years getting to this point. And now for the ability to build out this entire campus, share the Word of God, and heal people, truly heal people on such a big scale. I mean, it's moving. It's really moving.
Recognize a lot of the faces in the video. They're a part of our church. They're a part of our family. And Mark Hagan is one of my best dressed friends, and he's also quickly becoming a good friend. And Mark is the founder of Emily's Place. And Mark, I've heard talk about this with such joy and such reverence for what the Lord is doing. I just wanted to invite Mark to share a little bit with you his heart and what he sees God doing right now. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Excuse me. For some of those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Hagan. You guys may or may not recognize the name of the organization. Back when I first started it, back in 2002, it was Dallas Providence Homes. Since we're focused solely in Collin County now, we changed the name to Emily's Place last year. Our program is a faith-based housing ministry for battered women and their children. What makes us unique as an organization is that we're the only long-term solution for domestic violence in Collin County. And what I mean by that is we're the only agency that focuses on that solely. We partner with Hope's Door. They're a shelter. They're a great organization. If a lady comes out of a hot situation, she comes directly from the police department. She'll call because she's on the run. If they call us, we're not an emergency shelter. We're the bridge from the shelter back to the community. And we will commit up to 24 months to our women and provide total life skill training that they need necessary to become self-sufficient. Not everybody that comes in the program has to make it the 24 months to be successful. Women come into our program with their families at different places, and we give them the ability to have a hand up, to improve their life to a point to become self-sufficient. And then if they can leave earlier, we're much happier for that because that family's in good shape, number one, and we can provide another bed, which the need in this area is tremendous. Last fall, the National Domestic Violence Hotline did a one-day blast to check the need for domestic violence victims across the country. They had over 20,000 calls in one 24-hour period. Over half of those calls were requesting housing. So you bring that down here to Plano. Unfortunately, the fact of it is that while I don't think a lot of folks are aware that this is a big problem in our community, 2012, there were 26,000 reported cases of women and children seeking shelter in Plano for that time frame. There's a real need here. And so our new campus is going to give us the ability initially to double our reach. We'll have 28 beds, and we're going to be able to keep our budget the same. So from a business guy, that's a good thing because it can be expensive. But we have the ability to reach so many women because I think we've done a good job of partnering with the community. You guys as a church body have been tremendously powerful when I first started it back in 2002, and the resources that have come out of that have allowed us the ability to reach our women for less than $40 a day. In our new campus, we're going to go to $30. So that's a real powerful metric that we're proud of because it gives us the ability to reach more people in a cost-effective way. This year, our agency has received as many calls through June for help as we received all of last year. That number is 700, okay? So we anticipate that we could possibly receive 1,500 calls this year for help. So we can't open our campus soon enough, but we're making some real progress. I think the construction progress is probably the only person in the history of the construction world that their project is ahead of schedule, which is really fantastic. So while we don't know the actual firm date, we think that the date's going to be middle to the end of September when we'll officially open for business. The campus is going to give us the ability to have 3 facilities. This is phase 1. 3 facilities where ultimately we're going to be able to serve between 70 and 90 women and children on one spot. So that's really, it's nerve-wracking to think that there's that much need, not only to help our women, but just from the ongoing support that is going to be required from the community. But I'm confident, as I have from the first day we started the organization, that even though I have a regular job, God has been tremendously faithful in providing what we need when we need it, and there have been some really wicked times in the organization. So as we're here this morning, we've got a ton of fantastic success stories that we've had through our organization. Our most recent graduate, she actually came and worked for us as an assistant for a little bit, and just recently was hired by the Richardson School District. So her and her son now will have their own apartment, self-sufficient, and they're plugged into the community in some normal type of way. We also have I have the honor of having one of our residents join us today that you saw in the video, Kimmy. And I'd like Kimmy to come up here and share a little bit of her story and how our organization not only has been able to impact her life and her children's life, but how they have been able to impact us in such a meaningful way.
And you guys know Kimmy. Kimmy was baptized here like 10 weeks ago. So there are just incredible stories coming here. And I heard Kimmy tell her story, maybe a couple months ago at an event.
March.
And it just blew my mind and opened my heart in an incredible way. So we wanted her to share today. Thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you. What is freedom? Do you take for granted any freedoms in your life? You might say no, but I can tell you do. For most of my 20s, my whole life has been controlled. From what I wear, to what I do, to the littlest things, like when I'm allowed to use the bathroom. It sounds like a prison, but it's not the kind you might be thinking of. My freedom wasn't taken away because I did anything wrong, and I wasn't serving any government-mandated time. I was controlled, or as my boyfriend put it, punished for anything and everything. When you have no freedom, there's no hope to be found, no joy, no grace, no mercy, and certainly no love. I was young when I first met Jeremiah. We were high school sweethearts, and pretty soon I was pregnant with our first child, a girl. After Natalie was born, life got a little rougher. Everything I did was never good enough. And the first time Jeremiah hit me, I apologized, not knowing what I did. And I remember thinking, what did I do wrong? Eventually, he apologized, and naively, I forgave him. Daily, I live in an abusive cycle, fearing what might happen next, enduring all types of physical types of abuse, and forgiving the man who made me suffer over and over again. He started tearing me down and put space between my family and I. Then I became pregnant with our son, who was named Jeremiah Jr. From that moment our son was born, I was not allowed to hold him except to feed him. His father did not want him to be weak. As he would put it, my son would cry, and in the moments I would feel my heart breaking. There was occasions when the mother inside me could no longer stand by, and my fears were forgotten. I would hold my crying son, even though I knew the abuse would get worse. From then on, the cycle of physical abuse became a daily rotation, which only can ride in fear and anticipation. I would miscarry twins through this abuse before I became pregnant with our second daughter, Gracie. My family saw the abuse, but did not know how to help, nor did they know how to reach me. You would not even recognize me then. You would never see my face. I was always looking down at my feet for the fear of being hit for looking up. I did not believe I was a good mother, much less a decent person. I had trouble even talking because I was told I was sounding stupid and had no reason to talk at all. After some time, and for many years, I stopped looking for a way out. I gave up. And one day, as I lay down on the ground, so badly hurt and unable to move, I prayed that God would take me from this world. He did not answer me then. Soon after, Jeremiah was arrested for an unrelated warrant and sentenced to 14 months. During that time, I was given a chance to look up again and reconnect with my children with love and budding strength. And I realized it was time. It was time for him to go. I decided to move all his things out, and I wrote to him to let him know what I decided in his absence. He wrote back and agreed. And I thought, yes, I'm free. But that year went by fast. And when he was released, he asked to see our kids. And when he came to see me, he assaulted me and dropped me off of work, taking with him my car and my precious kids. He thought if he had with him everything that was mine, my car, my wallet, my world, which is our kids, that would be too afraid to say anything what he had done. At first, I was in shock and thought, why? How did I let this man back in my life? I got the courage from friends to turn him in, but he ran from the cops with the kids in the car. He was arrested, and not long after, I found my home at Emily's place. As I stand here today, looking back, even a short time ago, I see I have changed since living at Emily's place. Just 1 year ago, I was like a prisoner, trapped by fear for my life. I was there for 9 years. I survived broken bones, bruises, and emotional brokenness. All things I continue to find healing with the support and loving Emily's place. Recently, Jeremiah pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 7 years for the crimes he committed the last I saw him. And while he spent his time in prison, my children and I will take this time to begin life anew with the help of Emily's place. And the one thing that really makes me smile is to be able to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Yeah, I know it's silly, but after being told not, you can't move unless you've been told to move, I can use the bathroom. It's a freedom. I'm able to love my children and be the best mother at Emily's place. They don't take away my right to be a mother or to make the rules. They are there to support me, and they are simply the best blessing. I stand here by the grace of God, and with the help of Emily's place, I now can say I am proud, and that I am a beautiful, smart mother. And I can say I deserve so much more because I'm the daughter of God. I can raise my chin, and I can speak to you with confidence. And I love myself and my children without fear or barrier. And if it wasn't for Leslie Church also, it'd been great helping me find my faith again. So thank you for listening to my story.
Appreciate you.
Great job.
When I talk about letting God's love move through action to justice, that's what I'm talking about. And we're called to do this everywhere we go, to love justice, to live justly. And I'm so blessed that we get to partner with you guys all year round and support you and work with you to do that through Emily's Place. So I want to pray over Emily's Place with you guys, if that's okay, and then we'll move to a time just to kind of respond to God in this message. Father, I thank you for my friends. I thank you that I feel privileged that you brought them into my life, and that you're using them to open my eyes and my heart to works that you're doing that, honestly, with the busyness of life, I might just have missed. I might just have looked over. Father, I pray that we would be moved as a church, every one of us, to seek justice for the oppressed, because that's what you're about. And we thank you, Lord, that in your great place in heaven, you look down on us with love and kindness and compassion, and you want to wrong rights in this world. Amen. Thank you, guys.